Hello and welcome everyone to the USO MVP series, that is Military Virtual Programming. I'm your host, Chris Jacobs, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to a very special session of USO MVP. We are welcoming back author James Patterson, who has written a book with his co-author, who you see on the screen there, Matt Eversmann. It's called Walk in My Combat Boots. It was actually just released yesterday, available anywhere fine books are sold. Gentlemen, welcome. Matt, great to meet you. James, welcome back. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Now, I normally start out my interviews asking my subjects what the military means to them, what connection they have to the military. But Matt, obviously, you know, your military record speaks for itself. I will not do it justice by saying so. If you would, please introduce yourself to those watching.
Yeah, well, Chris, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for having me. I short answer, spent 20 years, 3 months, and a couple of lone days on active duty. I was enlisted infantryman in the Army and had the honor of serving in both conventional and special operations world, taught ROTC, worked at the Army War College, spent some time in Somalia in the early 90s, and then I spent some time in Iraq on the back end of my career, and I'm happy to say that I made it out with 10 fingers and 10 toes, and happily living the quiet life in South Florida with my friend James Patterson.
And of course, if you don't know, Matt is the subject of the book and the movie Black Hawk Down. So Matt, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Guys, first of all, let me remind the audience that if you would like to ask either James or Matt a question, you can use your Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Type your question in, let us know who you are and where you are. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. James, obviously you're very well known for your crime novels, the Alex Cross series, of course, but you often do these biographical novels as well. How did this one differ from the ones that you've done previously?
Well, when Matt and I first of all, I saw Matt do some interviews, and as you all know, a lot of people who are in the military will not talk to people who aren't in the military. They won't talk. My father was in World War II. He never talked about it to us. And when I watched Matt do these interviews, I said, boy, people talk to him. The soldiers, they will tell him things that they won't tell other people. And then I went to Matt and I said, the concept was walk in my combat boots. I'd like people to understand the military better than they do, a whole lot better. I think it's really important. I think the military is misunderstood by a lot of people. And so our mission was that if you've been in the military, if you're in the military, that you will say that Sergeant Eversmann and Patterson got it right. And finally, somebody's given us a voice, which I think is important. And if you're one of these people that thinks you know what the military is and you have no idea, you will understand maybe for the first time in your life what it means to serve and what it means to put your life on the line for somebody else. So that's what we were hoping to do, and I think that's what we pulled off with the book.
These stories are presented in such an interesting fashion. You've divided the book into 4 categories, basically the steps of training in country. Matt, explain that, how that came about. Did that come about organically, or was that always going to be the focus of the book?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, Jim is the brains behind the outfit, but he is. I mean, he just spilled out naturally. I would actually let Jim tell you that idea. I know from when I started, my ideas were just to get stories. My ideas were just what's going to come out, at the other end of a call. And some, of course, the beginning was more lively than the end, or the middle was more lively. But, Jim really was the mastermind of how this was going to break down.
We knew, because of the structure of the interviews, that we would cover why that person decided to serve, why they decided to go into the military, what happened to them in basic, what happened to them out in the field, and then if they're out, what happened to them once they got out, or if they're still in, So that was built into every interview. And then the interviews were 30 to 40 pages long, and then I would tighten them up into 5 or 6 page stories that would capture who that person was. I mean, Matt says there are 45 books in this book. So there are 45 stories, and you will know who they are. You will know the stories, and the stories are amazing. I mean, there's the Droddy twins, two brothers went in, served in different units in the Rangers, and no matter how fierce one of them went through, firefight that night, whatever the hell, they come out of it, and all he would be thinking about is my brother okay somewhere else. So it's like a movie. That's those 6 pages. There's a story that Matt loves about a door gunner. He can tell you about that. There was a reservist that came in, and he was a dentist, and he wound up being the dentist for Saddam Hussein once he was captured. And Hussein told him, he said, "I just made up the weapons of mass destruction to screw up the United States." So it's just story after story after story, and the structure was built into the interviews.
Matt, I believe the person who Jim is referring to when he says the door gunner is the woman who was so determined to become a chief. Is that her story?
Yeah,
Lisa
Bodenberg.
That one was the one that got me the most because it's such an amazing story of resolve. Talk a little bit about her, Matt.
It is, and Chris, I preface it because if you haven't read the book yet, read them all, because I think really all the stories have such moments of great impact. But Lisa's story really resonated with me because she had to not only, be the best of the best at one school, she had to be the top graduate at every gate that she had to jump through. And there were 5 or 6 different courses from basic training all the way through, door gunner school in the Marine Corps. And she did it, highs and the lows, the ins and the outs, good days and bad. She literally did it all. And I have my wife and I have a 17-year-old daughter who's going to be a collegiate athlete. And I tell her when she, gets down and frustrated, I'm like, go back and read this story about Lisa Bodenberg, because it is just amazing. Not only as what a young female can do, but just the determination. I mean, it's Rocky and Rudy and everything all put into one.
The determination and resolve that she showed was just incredible, because she was told that once she graduated in that honor position, she'd get to pick her job. She actually had to do that, as you said, 3 or 4 more times in order to finally achieve her goal. And she never lost sight, lost focus. Incredible and inspirational story. Guys, I want to go to our first live location right now. This is Brandon Law, who is in Camp Butler, Okinawa. Brandon, if you'd start your camera and join us, please. There he is. Brandon, welcome.
Good morning. I just want to say it's an honor and it's a pleasure to actually get to speak with you two live here on camera. It's about 4 a.m. here, and it was well worth it. It was well worth it. I just have one question for both of you. What, in your opinion, is this book? How is it going to change the ultimate perspective of the military for the American population? How do you think it will change their perspective?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so thank you. Great. Getting up this early in the morning, I was such a slug. I'd probably still be under my cot, like hiding from the first sergeant. So thank you. I tell you, my 2 cents is, we get so much thrown at us in the big major media outlets, and I'm not trying to dive into the political spectrum here, but, people tend to think of the military in extremes of, Gomer Pyle on one side or Patton on the other. And, when they hear, you were a fill in the blank, they immediately start thinking one way or the other. And I think sometimes the media exaggerates some of these stories. And what you get with this book is really, really grounded, very raw, very authentic, unvarnished stories of these young men and women, that have served. And with that, it's in their own voice, which Jim has done masterfully. And so there's no agenda. You get to know these kids. And, I mean that with affection in 5 or 6 pages, and say, wow, I that's a kid that lived down the road from me. I mean, Jim, that's my thought.
Yeah, and our mission is to get the word out and to get people to understand better than they ever have what the military means. As I've said, you have all these people. One of the things I'll say about the book is these people that come up and thank somebody for their service. If they read the book, they will understand what they're thanking them for, which I think is important. And look, and we've reached out to the new president and to Mrs. Biden, and she's committed to this. We got wonderful quotes from like Admiral McRaven, who's a really good author on his own. He said something which was, in fact, we were with him last night. But he said something that's so, sort of appropriate for right now. He said, if these challenging times cause you to lose hope, this book will reaffirm your faith in all that is good and honorable about this country. And President Clinton, who I didn't ask for a quote, but he said, when he was president, he visited more bases than any president since FDR, and he's a Southerner, so he gets the military. But he said every American should read it because every American needs to either reaffirm what they already believe or understand the military in a way that they don't, as they said, to understand what it means to serve. Because people don't get it. One of the things Matt talks about a lot is sense of purpose. And I don't think people understand how important the military is and how important sense of purpose is for people who are serving.
Brandon, talk a little bit about your experience. How long have you been stationed there and what are your duties?
Yes, sir. So I'm a 0161. I'm a postal Marine, postal staff NCO. Prior to this, I was my first duty station was Camp Pendleton, and then I moved to Quantico, deployed Iraq, Afghanistan. I became a drill instructor after Quantico, and then I came back, and now I'm back out here overseas in Okinawa with my family. And it's like we were talking about. Sometimes people come and thank me, but I don't think they understand what they're really thanking me for. So I just say, you're welcome, thank you, and kind of awkwardly walk away.
You bring up a really good point, and there was another review of the book that says, once you read this book, you will understand why you are thanking men and women for their service.
Yes,
we all like to do that because we like to show our appreciation, but when you read this book, you'll truly understand the experience that servicemen and women go through, and you'll understand why exactly you're thanking them. So that's a great point to make, Brandon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
And do you think through your experience, this book will, as we were talking about at the beginning, will give the general public an idea of what military experience is really like?
Yes, sir, most definitely. And then there won't be weird stigmas. I think it'll bring a better understanding. There won't be weird stigmas. Oh, this Marine has PTSD or this, that, and just general terms that people throw out there without really understanding what they're saying. So I really appreciate this book.
Awesome.
Both of you gentlemen.
And if I could just a quick thing to that, Brandon, when Jim and I started this, we just wanted to tell the stories across the board. And my idea was that I didn't just want to call all my old Ranger buddies and every Delta operator and, Force Recon, Marine, because we all kind of hear that a lot, and they forget that there's the whole rest of the conventional forces, of which I spent half my career, and that, logisticians and truck drivers and, load masters and, fill in the blank, we got a lot of those stories out there, and they would always say to me, Matt, I don't know why anybody would want to hear my story. And I'm like, oh, listen, Jim Patterson says everybody's got a good story to tell. And you do too. And you'd find out, just as you said, listen, being a drill, doing, Iraq and Afghanistan, we've all got stories to tell. So I hope that Brandon, you're like our best critic. You're the one, if you bless off and say, this worked, then like Jim said, we've done our job well.
And the way the people express themselves in the book is that's the real magic here. Just tiny little pieces, Jody Pritchard, she's an Air Force flight nurse. This is just 2 paragraphs. She says, I have a full sleeve tattoo dedicated to the patients I've lost over the years. It's a reminder of what I've seen. It's also a reminder for me to remember that it's okay to feel the way I do. I wouldn't trade my life for anything in the world. I love wearing the uniform. That's just 2 paragraphs, man. And it just, the book is just full of things like that, just truths. And so many of these people, they're so eloquent once you got them talking. Initially, to get them talking, a little bit of an issue, but once you get them going, man, it just spills out, and it's emotional, sometimes very funny, heartfelt, and it's people need to hear it. People need to hear it. People who are serving need to hear it. You know, there's people just like you. They're feeling things that you're feeling, or things that, you know. I mean, I think it's a lot like what you all do with USO is to connect people, to keep them connected.
Brandon, can't thank you enough for joining us here on the USO MVP series, man. Really appreciate you and appreciate getting your perspective. Stay safe and stay healthy with your family down there.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Get some rest.
All right, Brandon, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care, buddy. Guys, before we move on, I want to just get to a couple things in the Q&A box. Jane Taylor wanted to say hello from Wiesbaden, Germany. It's 8 p.m. there, by the way. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. And Becca Broach says, thank you so much for doing this. James, you are my favorite author. Michael Bennett's series and Women's Murder Club are my favorite series. I am Becca Broach, and we are stationed in Columbus, Ohio at Rickenbacker, about to PCS to Maxwell Air Force Base this summer. It's extremely challenging being a military wife and having to be both husband and wife, mom and dad so often. Your books give me escape from my reality. My questions are, what are your greatest inspirations for your novels? What is your favorite character you created? And how do you co-author? How do you divide the writing? Thank you very much for doing this.
That's a lot of questions. The co-authoring thing depends. I mean, with Matt and the one thing I will say is the co-authoring thing, it's always been fun for me. The relationships have always been good. Matt and I talk, it's a little like, when you hear about the way the Patriots used to be with Belichick or Brady, you know, who obviously just won the Super Bowl, who was part of the team, it's important that everybody understand what their job is. So Matt understood what his job was, and he did it incredibly well, and I stayed out of his hair. And he understood what my job was, and he stayed out of my hair. And ultimately, you know, we liked the result. Which is a key to me. In terms of the characters, I don't have a favorite. You might try the Black Book if you really want to be confused, because Harney in the Black Book could be my favorite character of all of them. And I don't remember the other questions, but they were great. Love Ohio.
Yeah, it was about, I think you answered them both actually, James, the favorite character that you created. And I think the other one was, what was your inspiration for your stories, for your novels?
Oh, yeah, a lot of it is my grandmother, man, because she just believed in me. She said, she said, you know what? I know you want to be in the NBA, because I could dunk when I was a little kid. But she said, that's probably not happening, but you can do a lot of other stuff. So, you know, and that actually came up with Admiral McRaven last night, that whole notion of just go for it. You know, my thing, when I'm working, I just keep chopping wood, man. Just keep chopping, keep chopping.
Well, once again,
eventually you'll have a wood pile.
Latest project, Walk in My Combat Boots, of course, co-authored with Matt Eversmann. Matt, you know, James spoke a little bit about the initial kind of inspiration for this project, were a series of interviews you did. What was the end game for those? Was it just to get stories, or did you envision turning this into a book at one point?
No, in fact, just to back up a little, before I had gone to Afghanistan with a mutual friend. In fact, the gentleman that introduced Jim to me, his name is Tim Malloy, and we had gone to Afghanistan in 2018 to do a short film about how we had improved our combat medicine, you know, field medicine, from kind of using Mogadishu as the baseline. And Jim very kindly gave us some advice and some pointers on how to, you know, work on getting the right stories from these soldiers. And you know, literally that was, I think, what was, when Jim saw that, it gave him a little bit of idea about how we might be able to do something else together. I mean, Jim, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. That's pretty much it. I mean, I was just, in fact, I remember talking to one of the Hollywood agents about, you should have Matt anytime, 60 minutes or whatever. If they're doing something that involves the military, have Matt do the interviews, because he gets the truth. And speaking of the truth, I mean, one of the things with this book, and this has come up several times now, is we just put the stories out there. There's no editorializing. There's no, I mean, you keep seeing on television, everything you look at, some facts, and then somebody's telling you what to think. We're not telling anybody what to think. We just, here it is, man. I think everybody's going to go like, wow, I get this better. I have more respect for the military than I ever had, but we don't say any of that. We just put the stories out.
Presented without comment. I like that. Guys, we're going to welcome in another live guest right now. This is retired Marine, currently living in New York City, Neil Ruggiero. Neil, please start your video and join us. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
Great. How are you, gentlemen? Gentlemen, first of all, I just want to, thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and thank the USO for taking the time to put these series together. They've been great. It's an honor to speak to you both. I have two questions, one for the First Sergeant and one for James. For First Sergeant, can you tell us a little bit about your leadership philosophy and what words of wisdom you have for this generation of young NCOs and junior officers as they go out and deploy and do great things in defense of our nation?
Yeah, Neil, first, again, thank you for all the heavy lifting you've done for us and for your service. I appreciate that. And for taking some time today. This whole leadership philosophy is a really great discussion I'd love to have ever since I was a private and started thinking about what it means to put, task and purpose and motivation all together. But to sum it up in 30 seconds, my advice, and I've told this to everybody from young Lance corporals to young lieutenants to cadets, is no matter what it is, always remember that we are in the people business. We are in the people business. Everything we do is about taking care of people. And we, the Army says taking care of soldiers, but I'm saying people. So, we live in a hierarchy. Everybody knows what the chain of command is. But if you, as a leader, remember, take care of people. I mean, sometimes it's tough love. Sometimes it's very, hard discipline. Sometimes it's a gentle smile. But everything you do has to be about taking care of people. And that's, I would literally leave you with that. We can never forget it's about people, because people are going to, you're going to have to rely on people in combat. That when you're on that two-way rifle range and you need your buddy on watching your back, he or she's going to do it not out of obligation. They're going to do it because they love you. Whether they like you or not is one thing, but they love you if you take care of them. So that's my sermon in 30 seconds.
Great question.
And when I was in business, this is post-Vietnam, just an incredible number of leaders who come out of the military. And where did they learn those basic military traits in the when they were soldiering, including my best friend who was in Vietnam. And he said he came out as a sergeant and he wound up, being in business and doing quite well. And he said, I learned it all when I was serving.
Neil, I believe you have a question for Jim also.
I do. Jim, when you write a book, do you know that certain books will have a higher propensity to be turned into feature films versus other books, or that's something that you think about when you're
No. I have no predicting. Hollywood is its own mystery. If I ever wrote a Hollywood novel, it would begin, "Hello, I lied." It's just a weird world. I never know what's going to happen. It's an interesting. I did a book about Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, and it was a Netflix series. And just the way the world has changed, that film on Netflix, 100 million people saw it in the first 10 days. That just goes to show you just how it's all changed. People just watching these things at home, just hundreds of millions of people, which is bizarre. But no, I don't. I never think about. I think about it, but I know it's not going to happen.
I don't think you have to think about it, by the way. I think it's taking care of itself. So
better.
Neil, thanks a lot for your questions, man. It's great to see you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Guys, we're going to go to one more live question here. This is coming from Cole. So Cole, if you wouldn't mind starting your camera and join us, please.
And there we go.
Hey, Cole, how you doing, man? Welcome.
I'm doing all right. How about yourself, sir?
Where are you right now?
Right now I'm stationed in Camp Butler, Japan as well. Yes, sir. So it's very early in the morning right now.
Awesome. What's your question?
So my question is for the first one, actually. So as a young NCO, I tend to ask this of like the more senior members like of the Marine Corps, of any military branch service. Like what was your drive that made you say, you know what, I could push through this, I could retire at the end of this? Because I know, especially for my small time here, I've had a lot of like highs and lows, and my MOS specifically, we don't necessarily go out as often as you you did. So like that was one of the things that kind of like that piqued my interest. Like, what was your reason? Like, what was your why?
Yeah, great question. And then there were a couple of them, and I'll be quite candid with you. They changed over time. You know, sometimes it was because I worked for a great sergeant major or a great battalion commander, and I'm like, I like hanging out with those guys, because at the time in the infantry it was all male, and I'm like, I want to be just like him. I want to go to all the schools that he did, and I like that. And then it would progress to this. You know, the mission is so important to me. Like this idea of supporting the national mission, you know, of going to combat. And I don't mean that like going to combat as much as, you know, where the Army needs me, I want to go, and I believe in that. And I think ultimately, you know, I enjoyed it. I always found a way to enjoy the Army, and not that there weren't bad days, as you know, and sometimes it's just a bad command climate that just doesn't work. You got to wait till somebody moves on. But for me, I honestly always could find something that I really loved about the Army. And for the most of it, honestly, it was the idea of either staying in the Army or getting out and going back to school. And I couldn't wait to not go back to school, because I really
looking around to make sure his daughter isn't behind him.
Exactly. No, she's gone. So that was it. You know, summing up, you know, I always was able to find something I could really like reach into. And that why I think ultimately by the end was supporting that national cause. But at the beginning was like, I want to be a grown-up. I want to have an adventure, and I want to do it with good people. And I hope, you know, somewhere in there, you see that in, you know, maybe the current assignment might not be the greatest at the moment, but, you know, you'll have great ones ahead. But if you ever stop having fun, you know, it's time to pull your dog on reserve.
Yes, sir.
That I do believe, you know, because it'll never get better. You know, the institution.
Cole, I'll ask you the same question that I asked our previous guest, Brandon. How has your military experience been for you so far, vis-a-vis the general public and your interaction with the general public as a military person?
So with that, my MOS is 0111. I'm an administrator specialist. Most of my administrative work, I work within the IPAC, so it's a lot of customer service, a lot of helping out Marines and their family members, whether it's them leaving off island in the outbound section, or at the time where I worked in the TAD deployments, where I would like hear about the stories about, you know, people going out, make sure that they get like the money's paid while they're either out there or come back on the back end. I had very like short S1 experience when I was attached to the 31st MEU. And that was an experience in itself. I very much enjoyed that. But as far as interaction with like the public, that's pretty much it. Like every position that I've been in so far, in one way, shape, or form, whether even with the off task with like camp guard or SAF, I'm always been in a position to where like I would know how my work directly affects the people, even though it's not the same in a combat sense, where it's like my brother to the left and my right of me, but it's like, okay, well, my brother's gone overseas, his wife and kids here, they need their money for this, so I'm gonna do what I can to help them out in the back end. That's pretty much what I've been doing.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, Colin. We thank you for joining us here on the USO MVP series. You stay safe and healthy out there. Yeah, you got something else to say? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Mr. Patterson, I just wanted to say it's actually like it's also a big like a really big thing for me. Like I'm trying not to like like spaz out right
Have
now
fun with it, whatever it is.
because like your book specifically was the main things that got me into reading a lot, especially in the rough neighborhood like that I was in when I was in Florida. And like by far the favorite series was the Maximum Rise series. And I don't know, that still stuck with me to this day. So like the second I heard is like, oh, you want to meet James Patterson? I could meet Patterson? Oh man.
Good. Well, it's nice to meet you, and I love to hear stories about people that where the books help getting them reading or getting them to be competent readers, et cetera, or very good readers. Yes, that's great. Thank you, Cole.
That's great
awesome
stuff, Cole. Appreciate you, man. Thanks very much for joining us here. Stay
problem.
safe
Have a
and
good-
healthy down there.
Yes, sir.
Guys, we are truly worldwide on this session. We have people joining us from Washington, Japan, Georgia, Florida, Virginia, Iowa, Mississippi, Germany, the UK, all over the world. So thank you guys. Spain, Hawaii, Guam, Wisconsin, California, Michigan, Colorado, and New York. And we also have a message from Jessica Cawthorn, who is in Germany. She is retired Air Force after 24 years of service. She's now the wife of an Air Force serviceman that will retire in 2 years with 24 years of service. So thankful to be a part of this thing that we're doing tonight. Mr. Patterson, you are the reason I started reading for fun and not because I had to. I hated reading when I was in elementary school. My grandmother gave me one of your books to read once and I was hooked. I haven't read a book of yours that I don't absolutely love. I'm looking forward to reading Walk in My Combat Boots. Again, thank you for meeting with us and thank you, USO, for putting this together.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you doing this. And I want to say, before I give you guys a chance to speak directly to those joining us, that thanks to a generous in-kind donation by Masterclass, we're excited to extend a no-cost annual membership to the entire Masterclass platform for 1 year to access online classes taught by more than 90 of the world's greatest minds, including James Patterson. Details on how to sign up for this offer can be found in a follow-up email coming to your inbox tomorrow. So thank you, Masterclass, for that generosity. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be taking advantage of that. Guys, I know that this book is going to be a big hit. It's going to be a wonderful bridge between those who have served and those who appreciate their service. And again, it will really give rise to people understanding why they're thanking people for their service. So I'd like to give you each some time now to give some words of encouragement and support to those joining us. And Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, listen, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, family members. I mean, it is the cliche term team of teams. And we are just so delighted. And this is the only time I would speak for Jim in this instance when I say we are delighted to be here to share this story, with you all. And really it's telling your stories. I applaud you for engaging with the USO, because for everything that our Department of Defense and all of our services try to do, they can't do it all. And part of that is some morale piece. Part of that is some transition piece. Part of that is just being a good shoulder for you. And as you all know, the USO does that. And so I thank you for making time today to come out and listen. And I hope we've done you proud with our book.
Yeah, this book for Matt and I, it is a mission in itself. And, we believe in it. We think it's so important that people understand the military better than they have. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. And, we just take it so seriously. The only unfortunate thing for us is we expected to be traveling all over the world with the book. Because of the COVID situation, we can't do it. So we have to do everything virtually. So we reach out. We hope you all will reach out too, in terms of this notion of, let's get people believing and understanding better. And if they understand what you're doing out there, the respect has to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it will. And as I said earlier, we're reaching out to everybody we can, to increase understanding certainly around this country.
Guys, thanks for those words. James, it was wonderful to have you again. Matt, thank you for joining us. And if you need more information on future MVP events, just go to uso.org/MVP. Once again, Walk in My Combat Boots, available now wherever fine books are sold. Gentlemen,
It's even available where crummy books are sold.
Also crummy books. We don't, we aren't going to say anywhere a book is available. Pick up Walk in My Combat Boots. Guys, best of luck to you in the future. We'll see you again soon. And everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Chris, thanks.